Hey everyone, it is Tanya. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you are new here. Today I am back with another speed build, and we are creating a cottage or cabin, I'm not really sure what I'm calling it yet, for a sim who likes fishing. I was kind of imagining a fisherman that was living here on the docks in Brindleton Bay, and this was heavily inspired by an item that I found in Show Live Edit Objects with the latest expansion pack, which is like a fishing net that is leaning against something, and I instantly wanted to create something with that. So you'll see me place that down pretty soon, but first we are working on the shape of this build, and I thought that this was the perfect lot to create this on, as it is literally on the dock and you can see all of the boats behind it. So I hope you enjoyed this one. If you do and you'd like to download it for yourself, it is available right now on the Sims 4 gallery. You can find it under my EA ID, which is Gryphi, Gryphi. You can also find it under the hashtag Gryphi, and that information will be in the description down below as well. So the interesting thing about the shape of this build is I started creating it and then realized I like the side better, so I rotated it so that the side is now the front, and then I am adding on from there and trying to figure out the final shape. I just did really like this covered porch in the front, and I actually do end up extending that all around the side and to the back of the build as well. And a little bit later on I will be adding some additional space over on the left of the build, so that we have plenty of interior space. However, this only ends up being a 1-bedroom house. I was only really imagining there was one, maybe 2 Sims living here if our fisherman has a significant other. And that is how I ended up decorating the inside. And I had a blast figuring out the decor on this one. You can see here is the fishing net that I had mentioned. I also got so much other decor, both from the new pack as well as cats and dogs and island living, just lots of stuff that screams fishing. And I got to use this new wallpaper that came with the recent event, the Nature's Calling event. I thought it was so pretty and really had the exact vibe I was going for here, so I was excited to use that. But here is where I am adding that additional section over on the left to add more space, and that's actually where the bedroom ends up going, up on the top floor. So just adding some roofing up there, and I should be also changing the wallpaper, this green wallpaper, to a different one. I try a few different options, and we get there in the end. But I started with one from Base Game that I really love. It's just, it doesn't have a version without the corner pieces, and that really bothered me. So I actually ended up changing to a blue wallpaper, which is this one from Horse Ranch. I just like how it's a little bit worn, and that just made sense to me to be here by the water, that over time the like sand in the air and stuff might have an effect. So yeah, just figuring out our windows. I used Base Game windows, I think, exclusively on this build. I also have this little guy here. You can see him all over the dock in the background, so it only made sense that he made an appearance in front of the house as well. And then for the front door, I started by trying this one from Island Living, but it felt very out of place, so I actually ended up going with this one instead from Cats and Dogs. It's built in the world of Brindleton Bay, so using items from that pack made a lot of sense. And I also grabbed a little awning to put over one of the windows, and of course I needed to put some of these flower boxes. I always enjoy adding these to builds. It just makes everything look so cozy. I've never had a house that had flower boxes on the windows, but growing up, my mom used to always hang flower boxes that she potted herself over the side of our railing on the front porch. So that's the closest experience I have of that, and they didn't all look the same. They were all very different. Anyway, right now I am also extending the porch around the back here, and I added some more windows, and I really go back and forth on whether or not the fence is going to be open in the back or closed, and in the end it does end up being closed off, and I just keep that as a storage space. So that way, you know, people on the dock can't just walk up to the backyard and use your stuff. I mean, they could walk around the front, I suppose, but I just thought it felt a little bit more private that way. Anyway, in the front here, I did get a couple of these barrels from Debug and put some plants in them for some extra decoration. There is also this piece over on the side that I grabbed earlier on that has some fish hanging off of it. I thought that that was a good decorative piece, and there's going to be a, I guess, barbecue fire pit. This item right here that is from the little campers kit, so your Sims can sit around and roast fish or marshmallows, whatever you'd like. I have a couple of chairs from Eco Lifestyle, but I also put some of those upside down buckets that also work as chairs that are from the Restoration Workshop kit. I thought that that looked really cool and was a nice pop of color. And then we are starting to work on the floor plan inside. I wanted to make sure a bed would fit up here before I placed anything down. And then we're figuring out our stair placement, which ends up being right here by the front door. It worked pretty nicely. And when you walk in is going to be where the dining room is. And then kind of in this back section, there is going to be a bathroom. And then the living room over on the left and the kitchen's towards the front of the house. And one thing that's kind of interesting is at this point, I was thinking we were going to have 2 full bathrooms. And so at the point when I was decorating the downstairs bathroom, I actually made the decision that it was going to be a half bath because I was like, oh, I have one upstairs. And then when I got upstairs, I felt like it wasn't big enough. So we do come back downstairs to add a bathtub to the downstairs bathroom. I know that probably doesn't make a lot of sense until you see it happen, but I was just thinking about it. Anyway, this is where I am picking out some wallpapers. I tried a few different ones. I wanted it to feel old. I was thinking this is probably an older man that's living here. And so I was just trying to incorporate some like older wallpapers and I guess like maybe cozier older decor, which Cats and Dogs has a lot of. So picking out this cute rug here by the front door, a place to hang up your coat. I also end up hanging up a fishing pole with some photos and stuff. That one is from the Everyday Clutter Kit, and I just thought it was absolutely perfect for this home. There's also a little bench here that you could sit on to put your shoes on before you head out, and I just added some pillows and rotated those with the tool mod. That way they look like they're leaning against the back of the bench. It just looks a little bit more realistic that way. So a lot of times I will use tool to rotate pillows, but not always. I don't think it's necessary, but I do like the effect that it brings. And then above it, I am just picking out some artwork, which doesn't actually end up staying there. I should be moving it to the other wall where I have the like steering wheel for a boat. I can't think of what that's called right now. But I do end up moving that to the other room and the painting ends up over there. And I believe I grab like a wreath to put up above the bench. But first I am changing my mind on the color of the pillows and the rug and just trying to make everything feel cohesive because I had an idea of what color I wanted the curtains to be over in the dining room section of this room. And I felt like it was a different room, even though they are in the same room. So I'm just playing around with colors to get that to work. I also added a plant over here and a nice lighting fixture also from Cats and Dogs. And then I'm just trying to make sure they look cohesive, going back and forth a little bit. And that is where I changed out the painting and added this little wreath, which I think is from the Laundry Day stuff pack. I thought that that looked really pretty there. And I also got this little tray on the dining table from the, I believe, Kitchen Clutter that has a bunch of different items on it. I just thought that that looked pretty realistic. But here is where I put that piece that was originally in the dining room. I hung that up above the fireplace instead. And then I am getting some more curtains in here in this blue swatch, although I can't remember if they stay blue or if I changed them. I feel like they end up being brown in the end. I also started with these couches from Cats and Dogs, but quickly changed it out for a sofa from the Growing Together expansion pack, which I think worked so much better, and that will change swatches a couple of different times, but it just feels more cozy and a little bit more accurate to what I would expect to see if I was going into a home that was just a older man who likes fishing. So I wanted to play around with that. Obviously, they could have whatever furniture that they want, but I had an idea in my mind when I was decorating this, so it took a little bit of fiddling. I also have an older TV over here. We have a barrel on the wall that has some different alcohols in it, and to make that whole area functional, I did put the globe bar, which I really like that item. I think it's such a cool one. It's got a lot of character to it, and then I believe just another plant in this corner, and something on the coffee table at some point. But first I added some of these like fishing lures that are in a frame from Growing Together. I used those in my last build too. I had posted a cabin your Sims could like vacation to, and I thought that would be a cute addition there, especially because I built that in Granite Falls. But this time for a Sim who specifically likes fishing, it just made a lot of sense. But here are the decorations that I put on the coffee table. I also got a grandfather clock behind the TV, and then over here is going to be a bookcase. And I wanted to have some sort of like decoration or side table or something over here. I ended up picking this one from the Basement Treasures kit, which is like an old box TV, which I thought was really fun. And I just end up having some flowers and a fishbowl up there. And that's pretty much it for that room. And we are heading on into the kitchen, which is a really small room. But I think it's a realistic size kitchen that I've seen quite a bit in real life. This is kind of the size of the apartment kitchen I had when I was in high school. And I've also seen this size in a lot of smaller homes. And this is definitely not a big house, so I thought that it made a lot of sense. It's super cozy, and I don't think this sim spends a ton of time in their kitchen anyway. They're probably outside fishing or by their, like, fire pit outside as well. So having a small cozy kitchen made a lot of sense to me. I used the countertops and the cabinets from the horse ranch pack, and then just decorated with some simple clutter. There's also a microwave in here. I love adding the sunflowers throughout the build. There's just that pop of yellow looks so, so pretty. And then this is going to be the downstairs bathroom. This is the one that I mentioned that starts out as a half bath, but I'm going to swap it out to be a full bath a little bit later on. I also thought I was going to use countertops, but I ended up using the sink instead, which is from Cats and Dogs and is in that beautiful blue that I was using in the kitchen. So it did work out quite nicely. It just goes through a couple different variations. I tried keeping the regular wallpaper, changing to this tile. It goes back to the other wallpaper later on, and then it will swap to have a shower tub combo in here as well, which I believe will be happening soon once I go upstairs and figure out where the bathroom is going to be, because I changed my mind about the walls up here. I knew I wanted to have a desk, and then I was like, okay, maybe a bathroom could fit, but it's not going to be big enough to have a shower unless I use one of those wall showers, which I didn't really imagine made sense in the style of build. So I decided down here would have the full bath. I know it's not always the most realistic, but in older homes it can be, especially if they've been renovated over time. The house my grandma lived in when I was growing up had 2 bathrooms, and the one upstairs with the bedrooms only had a sink and a toilet because it was added later on, because the house originally only had 1 bathroom. So if you wanted to shower, you had to go downstairs to do that. So I feel like it's fine to do that in builds. It can be realistic, and it's what worked best in this one. But moving on to the upstairs hallway where I have a desk, it basically acts as an office. I just have this small desk here, which I'm going to put a computer on, and some simple decorations up here. I have a clock on the wall, and I believe like a plant and something else. What else did I put up there? Oh, I think a stack of books. It's a very simple hallway, but I thought it looked quite nice, and it utilizes the space quite well, so your Sims actually have a place that they can use a computer. And then this is going to be our one and only bedroom. I did use this beautiful 4-poster bed from Cats and Dogs. I was a bit indecisive on if I wanted it to be a blue comforter or a green one, so I tried a few different curtain colors, and I did settle on the green in the end. And then I don't know why it took me this long, but I finally brought in some of these pieces of artwork from Cats and Dogs that have lots of like ocean scenes and fishing motifs to them. So I added a few of those in here. There ends up also being one in the upstairs bathroom. And then I'm cluttering up the bedside tables, and that should be pretty much it for the interior of this build, other than adding a small dresser by the door to the room. And then we'll be finishing up the decorations outside. But I really hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. You can also subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more, and click that bell to be notified when I upload. And a massive thank you to my YouTube members for your continued support. If you'd like to become a member yourself, you can click the join button below the video or the link in the description. Enjoy the screenshots, and I'll see y'all soon. Bye everyone.